everybody, welcome back to my channel, The Medieval Reader. So today we have a guest.
Hi, I'm John. You might remember me from the video where Fariba and I discussed The Birthmark by Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Yeah, I'll link it below so that you can check it out if you missed it. But today we are at Red River Gorge.
Yeah, we're here at Red River Gorge. We're underneath the Sky Bridge in Kentucky. So this is about an hour away from Lexington, Kentucky. There's a lot of wonderful hiking trails, and we definitely suggest it if you're looking for a beautiful natural area within an hour of Lexington, Kentucky, if you're ever out that way.
Yeah, so lots of beautiful fall colors, not exactly fall temperature, but it's really wonderful. So I thought that we would come together and film a video talking about books and reading. So what have you been reading, John?
So I tend to read extremely slowly, as in some of the books I've been reading for close to 6 months or a year, because I usually I don't read as voraciously as Fariba does. I tend to read a lot less. Typically, I don't read as much fiction. The only fiction I've been recently reading is Dante's Divine Comedy. I finished Inferno, and I've been stuck in purgatory for a very long time. Purgatory still has a lot of the suffering you see in Inferno. The big thing there is that you're eventually going to get to heaven. That seems to be the big emphasis in Purgatory, as opposed to Inferno, where you will be eternally suffering. He also has a very similar view that you see from other Italian authors like Machiavelli and The Prince, of a strong centralized Italian state or the beginning of another Roman Empire. They seem to really glorify that imperial time, even if it wasn't very Christian. The other book I'm currently reading, I tend to read a lot of philosophy. I'm currently working my way through Martin Buber's I and Thou. I found that to be very interesting. I'm currently reading the third part of that book. I'm reading a translation by Walter Kaufmann, so it's not the typical translation people read. Walter Kaufmann translates the term thou as you, which is what it was originally to be translated as. In the German, it is ich und du, and du means you, not thou. So it's a more literal translation. It was translated just a few years after Martin Buber passed away, and his son approved this translation. So I found it very good. I've liked the way that it reads. It is very nuanced, but it is readable.
And I have been reading the newest Dan Brown book, Origin, because I need a break from super intellectual readings that I do for school. So I do love philosophy, and I do end up having to read a lot of it for school, but when I need a break, I finished rereading the first Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I will be doing a spoilery book chat about my experience reading the first Harry Potter book as an adult, and I'm reading the newest Dan Brown book because I have to admit, I like Dan Brown. He's not a great writer, but it's an escape, and sometimes we need escapism. So.
What did you think of his version of Inferno?
Dan Brown's Inferno. The first half of Inferno I thought was entertaining. It deals with Dante and Dante's mask, and yeah, that was interesting. But it got progressively worse as it went along, so I'm hoping that Origin is far superior. I have good memories of reading the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, so that's why I read him.
Do you think maybe the author might have had issues writing the second half for some reason? Do you think he rushed it?
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on it?
It does. It feels like he rushed it. It feels like he didn't really think about where his story was going, and then he wanted to keep it interesting, and it ended up just being so outrageous. I just couldn't believe what ended up happening. So I'm hoping this is better paced, that it doesn't have an outrageous denouement, and that'll be entertaining and relaxing. So
for those of you who don't know, as Fariba's explained to me, Robert Langdon is kind of like the James Bond of, what would it be, anthropology?
Yeah, I mean, he basically studies the kind of things I study. So that's why I really like reading about Robert Langdon. But he also wouldn't make a very good professor.
Right.
Do you have any last things you want to say about reading, about your reading interests?
Yeah, so some of the books that I have finished in the philosophy section kind of on my own. I did read through Martin Heidegger's Being and Time. I read through a translation by Joan Stambaugh She was a student of Martin Heidegger's in his later years, so she understands what he's trying to say in German. So I think that if I would recommend a translation, it'd be that one. I know a lot of philosophy students have trouble really following what he's trying to say in some ways. I also finished a few months ago his Metaphysics of Being. That was quite interesting. That's where he does make some. He talks about the question of being, and he really has a very interesting view of Greek philosophy. He has a very different view from the common view. One other author I really like is Gabriel Marcel. I read through his Being and Having, which is his journals, and it ends with his essays he wrote on being and having. It ties in very well to some of his later philosophy, like creative fidelity. He was a atheist philosopher who eventually converted to Catholicism in about the late 1920s. So it's very interesting to read his views, and he has a very concrete philosophy, a very practical philosophy.
It's neo-Socratic. It's often considered existentialist, but he didn't like being called an existentialist.
Mm-hmm.
He'd rather be seen as a neo-Socratic, like Kierkegaard. So if you like more existential philosophy, you should try Gabriel Marcel, or Gabriel Marcel in French.
Better way to pronounce it.
So I think we're going to finish up. Thank you guys for watching. It's just a really wonderful day, and thank you, John, for joining me.
Thank you for having me again, Fariba, and it was good to see you all. And once again, I look forward to any comments or discussion that you want to have below. See ya.
Bye now.